Welcome to the Provincial Preschool Autism Service Autism Education Series on the topic of making sense of behavior. The information in this video is meant for parents, families, and caregivers of individuals with autism spectrum disorder and provides introductory information about understanding behavior and helpful support strategies. The information in this video is not meant to replace individualized medical assessment or treatment recommendations. If you have any concerns about your child, please consult your family doctor, nurse, practitioner, or treatment team. So again, thank you for watching this Autism Education Series topic on making sense of behavior. My name is Melissa King, and I'm a clinical interventionist with the Provincial Preschool Autism Services team.
My name is Melanie McKinnon. I'm a program implementer with the Provincial Preschool Autism Services team. Our goal for this video is to talk about common behaviors that can sometimes be hard to figure out why they are happening. This topic can be challenging, and it is important to reach out for help when you feel overwhelmed. Nova Scotia Health offers adult mental health services, and more information can be found on their website, mha.nshealth.ca. The IWK is located on Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people for over 13,000 years. As a health authority in Mi'kma'ki, Nova Scotia, focused on serving women, children, youth, families, and gender-diverse people, we commit to working together with Indigenous communities and leaders to co-create a path forward focused on reflection, understanding, awareness, reconciliation, and action that honors the knowledge, wisdom, and the strengths of Indigenous peoples and recognizes the historic and present-day harms and trauma experienced by Indigenous peoples.
Canadians on the autism spectrum have diverse opinions on language and how they wish to be referenced. So many prefer identity first language, which is autistic, while others would rather use person first, which is person with autism. In consultation across the country by the Alliance or the Autism Alliance of Canada, it was clear that the use of language in the autistic community continues to be an ongoing discussion. As our understanding and acceptance of autism advances, so does the use and understanding of phrases to describe or reference the condition. We want to be respectful of everyone's unique preferences, which is why we choose to use references to autism interchangeably in our documents, with the hope that everyone can see themselves reflected in the way that they desire.
Goals for this learning are to build observation skills to notice what behavior looks like and what is happening before and after that behavior occurs. We want to understand why behavior is likely happening, known as the function of the behavior, and we want to learn some helpful strategies for teaching new skills.
So let's dive in a little bit. Behavior, what is it? Sometimes we think of behavior as a negative a negative thing. Excuse my language. But behavior is anything we do. So anything we can see, observe, or measure. So behavior is not something that we're not doing. It's really what we are doing. So sometimes we're talking, or we're reading, sitting, playing, eating, hitting, dancing, crying. Those are all types of behaviors.
Sometimes behavior is tough to understand. The information and strategies we will cover will help us to notice clues and become behavior detectives. This will help us find patterns and understand what the individual is trying to communicate with their behaviors.
I love that, Mel, thinking about being a behavior detective. So we want to consider behavior clues, really, and collect them. So how we do that in our program is we look at the ABC framework.
That sounds like you're talking about the alphabet. ABCs?
Yeah, it does. You're right. But in our context, we're actually breaking down what a behavior looks like between an individual and their environment. So the A part is a fancy word for antecedent, and that really represents what happens before. And the B part is the behavior itself. So what does it really look like? Then the C part is what happens after the behavior, and that C stands for consequence. We'll dive a little deeper in a bit.
Here are some common examples of antecedents, or the A. Things that could happen before the behavior. These examples are in the context of a parent or caregiver and a child relationship. So as an example, you could ask your child to do something like sit at the table or watch me, point to something, You could ask them to say something or try something. You could also ask them to stop doing something by telling them they're all done or it's time to clean up, to turn off Paw Patrol, or maybe don't climb on the table. In these examples, there is some type of expectation that is placed on a child, a request to do something or maybe stop doing something, and these requests will invoke a behavior or a response from the child.
All right, so let's take a moment to think about how your child or loved one may respond in these situations. So, you ask your child to do something. What does the behavior look like? Do they sit down? After you say sit, please, do they put on their shoes? What happens if you ask your child to stop doing something, like turn off Paw Patrol or don't climb on that table?
Does your child turn off Paw Patrol or do they keep watching it? Do they come to the table or do they keep playing with their toys?
It's a great question, Mel. You know, something else also could happen. I mean, if we look at this image here, it really does represent a variety of behaviors that could occur that are different from the behaviors that we really are expecting in the moment. So, some examples of these behaviors might be refusal, or they may ignore, they might negotiate, scream, engage in physical behavior with themselves or maybe others. This little boy, for example, is throwing his body on the floor.
Many families share these examples of behavior that can be challenging. Remember that behavior represents a means of communication, and together we can learn about what skill we can teach in these moments.
Awesome. So here's where we'll dive a little bit deeper. Looking at that ABC framework allows us to gather important information about the behavior of concern. It also informs us about the skill to teach to help reduce that behavior concern. So in this example, we see that the antecedent is mom asked Toby to do something, and the behavior is that Toby didn't follow the instruction and he keeps watching a show. And then mom kind of leaves him alone. What do we think we learned in this moment?
Here's another example. So in the A, the babysitter asks Angus to come to the table for lunch. In the B, or the behavior, Angus laid on the ground and he cried and he banged his feet on the floor. C, or the consequence, the babysitter sat on the floor with Angus and sang a song to help him calm down. Angus stopped kicking and started to smile and sing along. Let's dive a little deeper and talk about what the C was and how it can impact how we learn.
So the word consequence is often associated with negative actions. However, in our framework, it's actually just any change in the environment or action by a person that immediately happens during or after the change in the behavior. So don't worry, we'll become behavior detectives a little later in practice once we learn a little more. What we do know about consequences is they can increase and decrease the behavior, which is typically dependent on if the consequence matches why the behavior is happening. Sometimes we call the why the function of the behavior. So let's talk a little bit about Toby. Toby's mom asked him to stop watching TV. Toby continued to watch the show. Toby's mom walked away, and Toby continued to get to watch the show. So Toby accessed Paw Patrol for longer. The behavior he did in that moment, it seemed to work. Toby got what he needed. So what do you think? Next time, what Toby might do, what would Toby do maybe if you asked him to turn off the TV?
Probably keep watching TV.
Yeah, I mean, it is likely he did learn that if I just ignore, I might be able to watch the TV a little bit longer. What about Angus, Mel?
Angus's babysitter asked him to go to the table. He did not go to the table, but instead he protested in a physical way. His babysitter then sat with him singing preferred songs. It sounds like Angus doesn't want to go to the table for some reason. Next time we ask him to go to the table, his babysitter asks him to go to the table, what do you think is going to happen?
I mean, it kind of sounds like he could use that again if he didn't want to go to the table because he got something really cool like songs.
You're right. Angus might physically protest next time someone asks him to go to the table because he learned he can avoid going to the table and access more preferred things.
So here's a slide to think about the functions of behavior, or the whys. When we do things in life, we do them to avoid things or to get things. However, even when we're avoiding things, we get some things. So, I think about maybe if our friend asked us to go for a walk and we didn't want to, and we said no, would we sit home and stare at the wall?
Nope, I'd probably put my PJs on and watch Netflix.
Yeah, exactly. So we're escaping the walk, but we're also getting some pretty cool things that we want, which is a movie and some cozy pajamas.
The most common functions of behavior are to get something from your environment or to avoid things in your environment, as indicated by the bold print boxes. The boxes in the middle are what we were motivated to access more or less of: attention, tangible, sensory things. Think about examples in your daily life that you engage in behaviors to get more of something or less of something. The ABC framework shows us that behavior does not happen in isolation. What's happening before and after behavior is super important. The behavior serves a function, and this is the information that your clinical team members will help you notice. They'll help you gather information, take lots of notes, and identify your best guess for the function. Together, you'll focus on the skills development that children can use instead of the less helpful behaviors.
That's great, Mel. So one thing that your clinical team will chat a lot about, and a great thought of something you can be doing is thinking about what motivates your child. So what makes your child laugh, smile, keep asking for more? What's fun things motivate you to do hard things or tasks? This is important information to consider when we're thinking about how to prevent behaviors of concern and increase the likelihood of engaging in a different behavior than that maybe undesirable behavior.
Let's look at Angus. What could motivate him to come to the table? Could we have some singing at the table? Or the babysitter could say, let's do some singing at the table, since Angus has shown us that he likes his babysitter singing.
Yeah, I love that example. I like how you're thinking about what motivates him to get to the table. The other thing that we're thinking about as well is behavior is communication. Um, you know, if we can think about some skills that Angus could learn and use in the situation instead of lying on the floor, what could it be? Remember, behavior is communication. So what types of things, what could Angus be communicating, and what could he do instead of the behavior to get what he needed in the moment? Let's be detectives again.
In the list on the slide are some options of alternative behaviors to the tantrum behavior. The main goal is to reduce the behavior that may be harmful or unsafe in the moment and teach an alternative skill to empower the individual to access what they want or to avoid what they don't want. We'll work together gradually in small steps to shape the skills over time. So some examples of these skills we could teach are communicating no, they don't want to come to the table, or later to delay coming to the table. Angus might say, okay, and just come to the table. Or he could ask to bring a toy to the table. Can I bring a toy to the table? He also might verbalize that he doesn't like what's being served at the table. I don't like soup or broccoli or chicken nuggets, whatever it could be.
I love those ideas, Mel. Those are great examples of alternative behaviors. So when we observe these alternative behavior, it's so important to acknowledge that these behaviors are what we want to see more of. These are the behaviors that are safe and effective for the child to get what they need and want. So acknowledgement is a new form of communication by honoring their verbal communication. And we know, or we call it a fancy name called reinforcement. Reinforcement is just a big word for reward. So we essentially add something or remove something after a change of behavior occurs to teach the child that the new behavior is effective. When we teach them that it's effective, it's going to strengthen over time and replace that behavior that is essentially becoming not effective.
Here's some examples of positive reinforcement that can be provided after the preferred behavior is observed. So if Angus says no, you could say, I love how you said no. Okay, uh, let's have some more time to play. Or we could say, let's sing, and reinforce him with our positive interactions. These examples are working to shape the eventual behavior of coming to the table for lunch and reducing the tantrum behavior. Skills
I
development
love
takes time and practice. Every child learns at their own pace. Practice and consistency can support better learning skills.
Yeah, I love all of those ideas. This is a great example here where the person can say, the babysitter in Angus's situation can come up and say, Angus, you can say no, I don't want that, or no, I don't want to go to the table, and model that language for him. Um, this is all about skill development. And, what we know about skill development is that it takes practice and consistency. And so, I think about yourself, Mel. I know you're a paddle boarder and you have built that skill over time. So I'm wondering, how did you get so good at paddle boarding?
Well, I started off really slow. I could barely stand up, but my teachers kept telling me to do the same movements over and over. And eventually it became easier. I could stand up a little longer. And the more I practiced, the more I could stand, I could go further distances. And by using the same tips that the teachers gave me, I continued to learn and improve over time. I can go a really long time now.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great example of that you had someone helping you figure out what to do instead, right? So all those things that you might have been trying weren't working. Someone's going to teach you how to do something new, and then you learn this skill with practice and consistency over time. What we call that is a different type of thing called prompting. So prompting might be something that you'll learn about over time, and it might mean that you have to model language for the child for them to learn. So again, like we said in this example, the babysitter could say, Angus, you can say, no, I don't want to go to the table. Really great example of teaching an alternative behavior there. By using communication, Angus has an alternative behavior to tantrum, and he still will get his needs met in the moment.
So let's put this all together. Understanding why behaviors are happening is an essential first step in thinking about skills that we can teach. Your clinical team will support you in developing an individualized plan for skill building and to reduce less stressful, less helpful behaviors and those that may cause harm to self or others. Building skills helps to live a life that is safer and provides more access to what brings the child and family joy. Thank you for watching this video about making sense of behavior. We hope this video has been a helpful learning tool for you. Please know, though, that these strategies you have learned about in this video will be supported by trained clinicians in real-life scenarios with the Provincial Preschool Autism Services. And we look forward to partnering with you. Thank you.
Thanks.